In this tutorial, we're going to go over DME 1115 listening skills. So the first thing to understand is what is listening skills? So when you get to talk about listening skills, this is just one of the four many tools of communication. And the other tools of communication which are there is speaking, reading, and also writing. We know that when you want to communicate to the next person, if you can't read, it will be very difficult. At times, of course, even if you can't read, you can still communicate by speaking. And what of if you don't know how to speak a certain language and you're in a foreign land? That is why it is important for us to be able to know how to write in maybe a general way or a language that a lot of people can understand. So writing becomes one of the ways of communication. And most of the times these are supposed to go together, because how do you write if you don't know how to read? Of course, you can know how to read some things which are written in a certain language, and if there's someone to interpret in another language to someone else who you want to communicate to. So these are types of communication. These are ways of communication: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So we use listening when you want to gather information also from a patient, especially that this course deals with medical students. So listening complements speech. It is very difficult for you to get to speak well when you don't want to listen well. Because how do you even just get to respond well when you don't even understand what the conversation is about? That is why listening gets to complement speech. So always someone who listens well mostly gets to speak well, because they'll not go out of the subject at which the subject of discussion. So it is very important to be able to listen other than just getting to speak, because you might just speak even what is outside the discussion. So listening is an active form of silence, sometimes appreciated as being another form of speech without expression of words. So we can think of I have understood and appreciate what you'd like to say. You can think mostly of patients. When you get to listen more to patients, they get to appreciate that very much, because to them it is a very big way of communication. There are a lot of people wants to bring out some things which they are hiding within themselves, a lot of things that they are going through, and when we get to listen to them well, that is another form of communication that they are going to highly appreciate. So that is why it is mostly found people talk a lot are not loved, but those who listen a lot of times are loved, because the communication is much better than just speaking. So listening is an active process and helps in responding. So when you get to start listening, it doesn't mean you don't have anything to say, and you don't listen because you don't have anything to say. You listen because you want to make sure that your communication and your response is going to be that effective and is going to be helpful. So people who listen good, they don't do that because there's nothing to be said at the moment, but you have to listen so that you make sure that even your response is going to be worth it. So listening helps in decision making, and it is a skill that connects the ears and the brain. The coordination between the ears and the brain has to do with listening. So this is why there is a problem a lot of times to people just get to speak and speak and speak without listening. There will be little coordination between the ears and the brain. That is why we find that people just get to speak and speak. There are a lot of errors made. We hate a lot of people. We say a lot of bad words because there is no coordination with the brain. The brain is not given space even to process things. All right. So listening is a skill that encourages interaction between the speaker and the listener. As such, the speaker is likely to measure the concentration through the feedback. So, as you can think of, you are in class and the lecturer or the tutor is speaking. So, for them to know that you are really paying attention or listening, they are going to use the way you are bringing a feedback. because at times you might pretend as if you are listening while you are filled up with a lot of thoughts in your brain, and you end up just hearing instead of listening. So hearing is just getting that sound, but listening is where you get to concentrate and understand what the speaker is talking about. So for the speaker to measure if you are listening or not, is going to look at the feedback. For example, he's been talking about this certain subject and he gets to ask a question at the end of it, or just to see if people were listening or not. So listening skill is a major contributor to a learning process. If you can't listen, you can't learn. So it is a very major contributor to the learning process. There are three basic levels of listening skills, and the first one is getting to listen to the patient. And this involves actual words. So you get to listen to the actual words that the patient is getting to speak. That is the content of what is being said. You listen to their story. And then there is also factual information. Now you listen to the facts of the story that they are telling you about. So you first listen to the actual words, you are just getting to get the words, and now you get the information. What information is found in those words that they are trying to talk about? And also there are some underlying messages. That is explicit and implicit meaning. So explicit meaning, this is the meaning of what is being expressed. And implicit, this is where now you will not get direct what someone is trying to say. You have to imply, to make an implication. In other words, you need to interpret what they're trying to mean. For example, they can be telling you just a story about something. Really it doesn't mean about that story they are saying. They want you to gather a meaning and apply to them. That is implicit meaning. And explicit meaning is just where you get to the actual ways that someone is saying, and just take it the way they are saying it. So I can be talking about someone, I can be saying, how would you take it if you, maybe someone has stolen your money, or maybe you are in this situation where your mother is very sick and you need money to pay for the hospital to treat the mother. So how would you take it in that way? Someone might be saying in that, in giving a scenario, but it might not be really a scenario they're talking about. They want you to get a meaning, that is the implicit meaning, and you interpret it for them. But explicit meaning is where now they're just telling you what is happening direct. So when listen to the patient, it also involves feelings and moods. How is someone expressing themselves? Because at times someone might be speaking positive things, but just getting to look at their mood, you understand that really not everything is well. And also there are some distortions and gaps as people get to speak, especially patients. So you need to also pay attention to the things which are being avoided. Perhaps they are not that comfortable, or they are afraid maybe when they get to speak of some things it might hurt them. So listening helps us to understand all of those. Why is it that there are some things that this person is trying to say? Maybe they were narrating a certain scenario, and when they reach to this part, they say, "Okay, never mind. I'll continue with these other things." You need to pay attention to that. That is where now you need to understand. Maybe there is something that they really want you to hear about, but they just can't bring it there and then. And there will be some omitted words and just some things which are misrepresented. So apart from listen to the patient, another basic level of listening is listening to the patient's non-verbal behavior. So at times they will not be able to speak words, but just their actions. So this involves body behavior, such as body movements, postures, and gestures. Just the way they are showing their body movements, that should be able to communicate to someone. And you can think of this. Some people have always said when you greet them, "How are you?" they are going to respond, "They are fine." But looking at their face and their appearance, really things are not okay. So that also takes us now to facial expression. This is where we need to understand the way someone is twisting the lips, frowns, twinkles, smile. It should be able to communicate to us. If someone says, "I'm sick," and you just look at their face, it's all about smiles. You can even get to doubt if they are really sick or not. So we need to pay particular attention also to the communication of non-verbal language. And we also need to listen, apart from just getting the words that someone is speaking, we need also to pay attention to the voice tone. Is it a high pitch, voice level, intensity, pauses, fluence? We need to pay attention to those to be able to really understand about someone. So another thing that we need to do, the level of basic listening, is you need also to listen to yourself. And this involves listening to oneself in terms of understanding feelings towards the patient and aspects of what is being said. So now you concentrate on yourself. Maybe someone is getting to narrate a story to you. Is that story getting to touch you? Also get to understand the feelings towards that person who is trying to narrate something to you. And also you need to understand and just get to apply them to yourself, or the aspect which are being said by, if you are listening to a patient. So these are the levels of basic listening. So listening is a complex skill that involves many processes. When listening, learners try to recall their background knowledge, and this is called schemata. So mostly when you get to listen, you're always going to apply something to what you already know. For example, when you are studying a new subject, you are going to start thinking of something that you have already known or something that you have already met. And that is going to help you to relate to what you are listening to then. And that is now where new knowledge comes to come in. So when listening, learners try to recall their background knowledge, that is schemata, along with their linguistic knowledge. So this is just knowledge of the language in order to comprehend what is being said. So when someone is speaking, you are recalling some things which you already know together with your understanding of the language, because in one language one word or one phrase might not mean the same as in another language. For example, when you come in traditional languages, you might find that someone is using a scenario of maybe an elephant or an ant to try to tell you something, but if you understand the linguistics of the language, you know that they're not talking about an elephant or an ant. They are trying to mean this and this. That is what leads for you to understand what someone is getting to say. So listening is referred to as the field of schema theory. So what do you understand by the theory of listening? This is a question we need to answer. So listening involves focusing completely on what is being said, how it is being said, to understand the speaker. Listening is important, and without it, it leads to misinformation and poor or loss of communication. So we need to pay attention as we get to listen to what is being said. What are they really saying? Not just what is being said and how people are saying what they are saying. Because really, a lot of people are not so free at the first instance when they're talking to us, and they want us to make sure that we show interest in what they are saying. So that is why we need to understand how are they saying it. We need to show interest in how they are saying it so that we really understand what is happening. If you can't listen, it leads to poor communication, and at times even loss of communication. As I said earlier, a lot of people would rather speak to someone who is a good listener than those who like speaking. That is why some people cut themselves from those who are talkative, because they rarely listen to them. They just want to be heard.